So for this session, we are primarily looking at 4 areas. 1, understand the role of research in academic writing, differentiate between credible and non-credible sources, incorporate research using paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting, and then finally synthesize multiple sources to support your arguments. So the role of research in academic writing. Academic research involves a thorough investigation into what is known about a given topic. When completing assignments, integrating information from a variety of sources helps to add depth to your understanding, strengthen your argument, reduce bias and misconceptions. Also, being able to find, elevate, and integrate sources in your work is an important skill that you can use throughout your personal life and career. And it really is. When you go into the workplace, you have to write reports. You may be asked something as simple as finding the best printer for the office, and you need to compare them. So you need to do some research on each printer. You need to do, even if it's just a 1-page report, then you can draw on the skills that you learned when you were going to school and how to integrate academic writing and sources and all of those things and to make a proper argument, etc., etc. So it does follow you into your life. So we have some other reasons why research is important in your writing: to facilitate clear communication. Now, this structured mode of expression fosters knowledge exchange and encourages intellectual growth. It also nurtures critical thinking, and it prompts individuals to scrutinize, evaluate, and synthesize information, empowering them to construct well-supported arguments and informed conclusions. Also, it puts an emphasis on research proficiency. Academic writing drives individuals to delve into scholarly sources, enhancing their understanding of specific subjects. Additionally, it contributes to your professional academic growth, as I mentioned before, so it serves as a yardstick for assessing comprehension and critical thinking skills. Also, it helps you to uphold intellectual integrity. It fosters transparency and accountability while instilling the importance of intellectual property rights. So I know that as students, you feel like the research is just boring. I don't need to do this, what I need to do this for, etc., etc. But it helps you as you go on in your career, as you move up the career ladder. And even sometimes if you need to run your own business, a lot of the things that you learn in university can help you when you are running your own business. All right, so I just want to clarify the role of research in academic writing so that you see the purpose here. All right, so when you're doing your academic writing now, what are the main things you need to do first is to differentiate between what is credible and what is not credible. So there is the CRAB test, that is a litmus test to determine whether a source is good or not. We have currency. Is the information timely? Is it out of date? Does it matter what you're researching? Has the information been updated since it was published? So the standard in academia is that most of your sources should be within the last 5 years. And then the rest of your sources can be within 10 years, or if you have you're discussing a subject matter that there's an authority, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a theory that was developed 1965 or 69, somewhere thereabouts. And you need to go back to that. And that is an article that is easily found online. You can use that old article, but only if it is an important source. And you need to go to that original source, then you can definitely use old sources, but stick as much as possible to 5 years, no more than 10 years. Well, so yes, so we talk about the currency, the relevance. Is the source directly related to your topic? Who is the intended audience? Does it meet the needs of your work? Sometimes I've seen students use articles or references that is just far left, like it does not really relate to the topic at hand. Then there's authorities, the author qualified to write on this topic. What are the credentials that make them an expert? This is one of the reasons why we don't use blogs in our academic writing. Anybody can write a blog, and usually they don't have the authority, and it oftentimes is not accurate. So is the information supported by evidence when we talk about accuracy? Can you find the information from more than one source? Is the writing professional? So one of the things you want to do when you're looking for your sources is that you find one source that supports your argument and you stop there. No, you need to find multiple sources, at least 3 that support your argument so that you know that it is solid. And also purpose. What is the purpose of the information? Is it to inform, teach, sell, entertain, or persuade? Is the information presented as fact or opinion? So when we talk about the purpose now, often when the software companies, especially they are selling their product, they also have blogs attached to their website. And they write a lot of articles, but the articles tend to be skewed towards the product that they're selling. And therefore, sometimes there are issues with the authority and the accuracy just because they want to persuade you to purchase something. So we want to be careful of those general blog articles that we're looking at when we are writing our assignments. Now, this craft test is not something that you need to remember, strictly CRAAP. No, you just want to have a basic idea of what constitutes a good source, a credible source that you should use in your assignments. So what are some credible sources? Peer-reviewed journals, the journal articles, book from academic publishers, so the textbook that you use in your course, you can grab information from it. Government websites that end with gov and edu tend to be more reliable. News from reputable outlets such as Forbes, Harvard Business Review, Pew Research Center do a lot of research. New York Times, etc. We don't want you to go to any little blog. Industry reports from experts, for example, annual reports on Deloitte website. They do a lot of reports on different topics. There is United Nations, UNESCO, a lot of those websites you can find reports that are based on actual research, real primary research that was done. So we want to use credible sources for assignments, guys. Non-credible personal blogs without evidence, Wikipedia, social media posts, tabloid or sensationalist news, commercial sites promoting products that I spoke about before. But let me go back a little bit to the personal blogs. Sometimes you will see a blog post on an educational topic, a topic that you would cover in one of your courses, and at the end of it, you see a list of references. Those are blog posts that you can use as well. And they have, the journal articles and books and those things that they use as reference. So you're able to use those because those, quite credible. They have evidence and that kind of thing. So, all right, so that is just what I want you to know on credible versus non-credible sources. Stop using any little food blog that the first thing that you search and you find in Google. Also, when you use generative AI, it pulls sources from all over the internet, from every little blog, every little post, and that kind of thing. And that is why a lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, some of the times the information that ChatGPT gives you is not credible. So we want to be cautious about that as well. Now, I'm sure that you already know how to paraphrase, summarize, and quote, but we're going through it a little bit. Because when you learn to paraphrase and summarize properly, you can ensure that you are not plagiarizing. And when you submit your assignments to Turnitin, you don't get a high similarity index. So quoting. Do not use too much quotes in your assignment. When you're writing an assignment, if you can, you might use 1 or 2 quotes, but don't go above that, as it is the similarity index is going to pick up your quotes. So when you quote, you include the exact words of another author in your research paper in quotation marks without changing them. Quoted text must be enclosed in quotation marks. You can integrate quotes effectively by introducing them in your own words, providing relevant background information, or explaining why the quote is relevant. Now, an example is, according to Emile Zola, art should reflect the fact that there's an absolute determinism for all human phenomena. You put that part in quotes because you do not want to change the meaning of what Zola said, and to paraphrase it would maybe not give the same emphasis as this sentence and says absolute determinism for all human phenomena. Similarly, the early word production stage is therefore worthy of examination, as it signals that children have a new tool that will enable them to learn about and participate more fully in their society. If you paraphrase that, you're probably saying the same thing again. So you just use the quote, but then don't overuse quoting, as little as possible and only when it is necessary. Paraphrasing now means putting together author's ideas in your own words while retaining the original meaning. Paraphrasing is useful when you want to show your understanding of the original source. It also helps you to integrate sources smoothly, maintaining a consistent voice throughout your paper and maintaining focus on the material that's relevant to your argument. So when paraphrasing, be careful to avoid accidental plagiarism. Don't use back the same words that the author used. Don't say the same things that the author say. You're just narrowing down and making it more compact, but you are also making sure that you don't change the meaning of the information that you are paraphrasing. So make sure that your paraphrase is sufficiently different to the original text and is properly cited. You must put the material into your own words, substantially changing the structure or wording of the original text, but definitely not the meaning, not changing the meaning. So this is an example. I'm not going to read it. If you want to read it, you can just pause and read it, but you will see that the paraphrase text is shorter. There is no direct quote. If you use this the whole quote in the original text, you'll be skyrocketing your similarity index. Don't do that. People that are writing books and that kind of thing can use the large amount of text, but for your assignment, please don't. So now you're right. It's over here, the paraphrase text is simpler, it's shorter, you're still referencing the page that it comes from because you're paraphrasing. So you have to put the exact page in the original text, in the journal article, in the book, from wherever you get it from, that you are paraphrasing. So yes, summarizing now. So when you summarize a source, you give an overview of its central arguments or conclusions. Summaries should be much shorter than the original text, similar to paraphrasing. They should be written in your own words and should not quote from the original source. So when summarizing, you don't analyzing the original text, you're really describing it. So a summary of a source, it is saying what Frank Kermode describes the human impulse to impose an intelligible pattern of one's relationship, etc., etc., etc. You are saying what happened in the text, but you're really describing it. You're not, the paraphrasing is different in terms of you are just simplifying and shortening the text, but for the summarized, you are describing the text. And you can summarize a full 3-page document in one paragraph, in one decent paragraph. So, I know that you should know how to do these things already, and you can always do some extra reading, etc. to really do kind of a, if you have a little worksheet or a thing and practice how you summarize. And just to talk a little bit about signal phrases. These are used to attribute a quote or idea to another author. You can use them when you quote, paraphrase, summarize primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. So what the signal phrase does is that it introduces material from an outside source. It provides relevant background information. It also helps to characterize the author's idea and your own perspective on them. So a signal phrase usually includes the name of the author and an attribute tag such as has criticized, followed by the relevant quote or idea. So the signal phrase here is Einstein stated. And then you say what Einstein stated. But you use the word stated if you're going to put something in quotes. When you are paraphrasing, you can say according to, or the author reports that, or the author supports the idea. And there are multiple signal phrases that you can use. But I wanted to mention it here that sometimes what students will do is use according to. And every source they're using, again, they say according to. You can mix it up. You can use different signal phrases. Also, before you go into the signal phrase, You can write a sentence or two in your own words, and then you go into what the author said. That will make up your word count and show that you are engaged with the material and that kind of thing. So you can always look up some signal phrases, especially when you're doing the second draft of your assignment. Now, I know that a lot of students don't do second drafting, but I think that I have gotten A grades over the years in my studying because I second draft. Because sometimes the first time you write an assignment, you're just pouring out what you know, you're putting together your sources. Sometimes it's not aligned and I have to move a paragraph here, put it up there. So take that paragraph and put down the bottom to make it flow better, for it to be cohesive and all of that. All of that happens in your second draft. Sometimes you might want to even go to a third draft, especially when you're doing a very long project. For example, when I was doing my doctorate and I was doing my dissertation, I did multiple drafts because that is what was required. For your assignments, you don't need to do that. But at the very least, do a second draft. That's where you pick up things and can fix things. And just make sure you get that A grade, All right, so this is the money part now. How to synthesize your sources. So what students tend to do is just put according to this author, according to this author said this author, and they don't put the material in such a way or integrate the sources in such a way that you're making an argument. And for every assignment that you're writing, you're pretty much making an argument, even if it is not titled an argumentative essay. If you're doing an expository essay, whatever you're doing, usually you are making an argument. So what you will need to do is to synthesize the sources. And this means combining ideas from multiple sources to develop a cohesive argument rather than simply summarizing each source separately. First thing you're going to do is to understand your sources. Read and annotate each source carefully, identify the key themes, arguments, and evidence, note agreements, disagreements, gaps, and the gaps among sources. When we say read and annotate each source carefully, we don't mean that you're going to read the whole journal article. It's just not practical. I used over 200 sources in my dissertation. I could not have read all of those articles from start to finish. I did read some of them from start to finish, like the most, impactful articles. I would read from start to finish and make notes because I'm doing a very long form project. But when you are doing your assignment, don't read all the journal articles. Don't try and read all the books. It's going to take you forever to finish your assignments. So I will show you after I finish the PowerPoint presentation an easy way to go through and understand your sources and even identifying common themes and in addition, comparing and contrasting perspectives. So when we say identify common themes, what we mean is that we look for similarities and differences among the sources, group sources by themes instead of summarizing them individually. If you summary individually, but then you group them. For example, themes are the causes of a problem, the solutions proposed, different perspectives. Then we compare and contrast perspectives, show how sources agree, differ, or complement each other. Use signal phrases to highlight relationships between these sources. So, the last time I paused the recording, I'm not going to pause the recording, but I'm going to fix something right here in this PowerPoint. I'm not pausing the recording. At all. So fix this, save it from current slide. So presenter view. Yes, I had 1, 2, 3 instead of 4, 5, 6. All right. So step 4, you want to integrate sources with your own argument because you are allowed to inject your own argument. You just cannot use the first person and say, I think that. No. You're integrating your own argument, but you're using the sources at the same time. So don't just list what others say, explain how it relates to your thesis, how it relates to the topic that you are writing about, the project that you are doing. So use synthesis to build your argument logically. You want to use paraphrasing and quoting that we discussed before. Getting information from the multiple sources and always cite your source properly. We're not talking about any source thing today. because that is, yeah, you should know how to do that already. And conclude with a unified view. So summarize the key points from different sources, explain how they support your argument. And if you are doing a research kind of paper, you can identify gaps in the research or areas for further study. But for your assignments, it is not required. Usually when like you're doing that final year project thing, you identify gaps, or you're doing your master's thesis and that kind of thing. But for your regular assignments, you don't have to identify gaps in the research. This is an example of a synthesized paragraph. It is very short. It is, you could use these same sources and write a full page, because you would be using the long form paragraph, paraphrasing and summarizing. But this is just a short synthesized paragraph, and I'm going to read it. The topic is the impact of remote work on productivity. So Smith 2021 argues that remote work enhances productivity by reducing workplace distractions. That is one article. Similarly, Jones found that employees working from home report higher job satisfaction and efficiency. See our second article that back up the first one. That's why you need to find multiple sources that, saying the same thing. However, we're going on the other side of things now, because remember, you're making an argument. Brown 2020 warns that remote work can lead to decreased collaboration and innovation if companies do not invest in communication tools. Then we're wrapping up and we're saying, while these perspectives highlight both benefits and challenges, there are recent studies, which I have 2 more studies that suggest that hybrid models balance productivity and teamwork effectively. Now, this is a very content synthesis. You could do this in 1 or more pages with your flesh out each source and write about it and what it is saying and what kind of research was done and all of that. So, I know that some of you struggle with your word count, but it is because you're not fleshing out the sources properly while you're struggling with your word count, because these 5 sources in this little paragraph could give you a full 1 page or maybe a more, and you would synthesize and make that argument. So wrapping up this presentation now. Research adds depth to your understanding and strengthen your argument. Use credible sources when writing your papers. Use quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing effectively. Use signal phrases to make your arguments clear, and then synthesize your sources and not just describe or state them. All right, so this is it appears as if I was not sharing the screen just now, but yeah, I didn't realize that I wasn't sharing the screen. I'm not doing over the recording, guys. So I think I stopped the sharing right here, and I corrected this section here. So if you want to pause and look at it, then I read the example of the synthesized paragraph. So if you want to stop and look at it, and you heard what I had said before, and then this is just the summary. So that is it. So I'll stop sharing again, and then now I'm going to share a PDF document that I put together when I was preparing for this presentation. And this PDF document just shows the process that I went through when I was preparing. And you can do the exact same thing. So step 1, you're going to find credible sources. Step 2, you use a table to record your source, your abstract, other details from each article, book, or website. Then you can use generative AI to summarize, paraphrase, and quote, and then you use the information to write your assessment. I urge you to never directly copy and paste from generative AI. Write in your own words for the entirety of your assignment. The university just approved the AI policy, and it is going to be very, very strict. So just practice from now to not use AI directly. You can use it indirectly, but not directly, because I love the technology. I pay for the premium version of ChatGPT. I also pay for PaperPal, which is integrated into Microsoft Word. So I pay for all of 2 AI tools to help me with my writing and research, because it makes life easier, but I don't copy and paste anything. I do my own work, but especially the research and that kind of thing, AI just is a lifesaver, time saver. If I had AI when I was doing my dissertation, it would not have taken me so long, honestly. All right, so what I did is that I used the topic, teamwork. And then I search for some journal articles. I just use open source articles from the internet. And I found one about the impact of team management on workers' productivity. And I just cite the source immediately. What you don't want to do is to use a source and then you can't find the citation and then you're in a problem because you need to cite it properly in your reference list, etc., etc. So you do that upfront. You copy the abstract. Now, sometimes the abstract has a lot of information, but most times it does not. Sometimes the abstracts are very short. So even though I copy and I paste in this abstract, I read through it, I realize that, all right, it's giving me some information, but it could take some more information. I go down in the body of the article and I pick up the recommendations. What are the recommendations that the author made? As I can use this information for even the recommendations that I'm going to make. And most of the projects that I give as assignments to students have a section for recommendations and conclusion and that kind of thing. Can be used here, and even in the recommendations, you're going to cite the source again. And I do it for all the articles. See this abstract, how it's short? It was just not enough information, this one. I had to go down in the document and pick up some more information. This was just not much. This now was just a part of the literature review area where they were defining virtual team, and I thought this was super important, so I used this information as well, and I continued along the same vein. So this is how I put together the articles, and then this is the textbook for one of the courses that I teach. So I grabbed some information from the textbook. Definition of a team, the building blocks of a team, because you want to use some definitions when you're writing a paper. And then this is an article from a blog called the Management Study Guide. I've been referencing this management study guide for as long as I can remember. I use it to create handouts for students, that kind of thing. I very often go to this website, Management Study Guide. I took some information about high performance teams from it. I have the premium version of ChatGPT, and therefore I save this document separately and I just attach it. If you don't have the premium version, you can just copy and paste. Even in the table format, it will pick it up in the table format. You just copy and paste it. I think ChatGPT can take about 5 pages of text, copy and paste. And then I'm excellent at prompting. So I use this prompt because I want it to do exactly what I ask it to do. I know what I want, and I put everything there. So I say, use the research articles in the document attached, or you could say information below if you're going to copy and paste. Summarize each source, paraphrase the key areas of each article, extract one key phrase or sentence from each source that can be used for a quotation, identify common themes, and compare and contrast perspectives. This will save you hours, days, because you ask ChatGPT to do it for you. And because you give it the information, it can't give you anything unreliable because you gave it the information. Do not go into generative AI and ask it for any information. It is highly likely that that information is going to be inaccurate. You give it the information and then tell it what to do. And this is an excellent prompt that you can use. So here, it summarizes each article. So we get a little summary here, we get a little summary there, we get a little summary for everything. The summaries are short, but they're okay. Then it paraphrases some key ideas. So one of the key ideas in this article is that team management enhances productivity by improving employee skills, knowledge, and attitude, leading to greater efficiency. And it just paraphrases all of those key ideas. Then I may want to use a quote here and there. So I'd ask it to take one quote from each of the article, and I'll say which one I feel like I would want to use. High performance teams require continuous support and the guidance of an able leader. Or I prefer when I'm quoting anything like this, a quote, I use a journal article. So without perceived managerial support, employees may hesitate to engage in innovative behaviors, a quote that you could use when you're writing. What are the common themes now that came out of these articles? Remember, it was 6 sources, taking all of them from it. Remember, when you're writing your paper, you can use a source in the same paper several times. Don't want you to use it too much, but you can use it several times. So you see Onochi here, then Onochi down here again. You can use your sources several times in the same paper. Because many times an article will discuss different areas, different topics. So you can always use it. Then we saw that these 3 articles highlight the importance of effective management in fostering team productivity and innovation. And down here, we see where these 2 articles also discuss how team structures must be carefully managed. So yeah, and then you put it in areas, the role of management in team success, challenges in virtual diverse teams, the balance between autonomy and control, and then recognition and support for motivators. So you can go ahead and use that information to write your paper. It is advisable to stop here with generative AI, and then you take this information, which is good information, and you go and write your paper. Don't use no Grammarly or anything, because that is going to give you a high AI index. And we're getting down to the nitty-gritty and getting very strict with the AI. And even lecturers that would normally ask you to submit to Turnitin is asking you to submit to Turnitin now. So I've always been using Turnitin, but that's not new to me. So for the purposes of putting together this presentation, I was not going to go through the process of literature review. So I asked ChatGPT to do it. I am discouraging you from doing that. And even if you do it, it's just to give you some guidance, and do not copy and paste anything from ChatGPT. Writing it over in the same words is the same as copy and pasting. You have to make it sound like you. Copying and pasting and putting it into Quillbot to humanize it, Turnitin is going to pick it up anyway. And I keep warning students, because when your AI index or your similarity index is high, I do not grade the paper. I don't. When I just started at UTech, I used to just, for the similarity index, I would take off marks or that. No, I just don't grade the paper any at all, and you get 0. That is how serious I am, that you need to do your own work, because that is where the learning comes in. Anyways, I asked ChatGPT to write the literature review. And you see what it did? Out of these six sources, I got 823 words. And I know that you fear the word count. And also, when I give my assignments, I tend to use both page and word count. Because if I tell you 5 pages and you spread out 3 pages over 5 pages, you're not going to get no good marks, because you don't flesh out the topic adequately. So I always give a word count as a guide, make you know that you need to write the 2 or 3,000 words. So it don't even matter how much pages you spread it out over, you need to give me that word count. And some institutions are very serious about their word count. They don't want it to go over, they don't want it to go under either. So this is what you do, but you have to make sure that you are still in line with whatever instructions was given in the project. So whatever those instructions were, make sure that you're following the guidelines, you're following the rubric. I always give my students a rubric so that they know exactly what I want from them, and that everybody can be graded by the same metric. So yes, I think that's it. I think I'm done. So you see the importance of integrating research into your writing. You see how to do it. You're not going to get all of this overnight. It comes with practice, and you can carry it throughout your career and that kind of thing, and learn how to just do research and writing. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so stop sharing and then stop the recording. Okay, bye.